Whenever you are on a trip, surprises are in store. While sudden storms are bad enough, imagine there's a war. Stay tuned for first-hand accounts of being on a cruise ship in Israel the day they were attacked. Welcome to a special edition of My Travel Window, where we help you travel as far as you can while you still can. On the morning of October 7th, 2023, the Holland America ship New Statendam was anchored in Haifa, Israel. The ship was halfway through a 2-week itinerary that started in Athens, had already stopped in Egypt, and was just beginning a scheduled 3-night stay in 2 different Israeli ports. But that morning, without warning, and while many people from the ship were already ashore sightseeing, news came that Hamas had attacked southern Israel, who then retaliated with a state of war. Imagine being on a cruise ship when that happened. 8 days after this attack, we boarded the same ship for a trip in the northern Mediterranean. There we met several people still on board from the previous cruise who gave us first-hand accounts of their experiences on that day. I asked 2 of these if I could interview them for this channel. I think you'll find their stories fascinating. So why don't you guys give your first names and where you're from?
Bruce from California.
And I'm Dave from Florida.
Okay, so both of you were on the ship, when you arrived in Haifa on the day that Israel declared war.
Yep, October 7th, right? And
So
we docked about 7 a.m.
uh-huh.
And that day, the getting on and off the ship was a thing where they issued you or they told you to get off on a certain deck at a certain time.
Uh-huh.
They didn't just release everybody on.
Right.
And so we did not have a ship so we were waiting for our deck to be called. How about you?
We had a tour,
Okay.
and we eventually made it to the bus.
Oh, okay.
The bus got as far as, I think, Bethlehem, and we literally, as the last person stepped off that bus, our guy got a phone call, and it was back on the bus. So that is as much as we got to see. And we came back.
So to back up, the getting off at different, the way you got off the ship, that was the first time that it happened, right? You
Yeah,
got off
it
at
had-
Athens and you had already been on for
Yeah.
a week or so.
2 weeks. Well, a week.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that, they issued a little tag that said, you need this to go through Israeli immigration.
Right.
Yeah.
And, they held everybody back and released them at time. We watched all the shore excursion people go off first.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you guys went off and then it backed up. It really backed up after you did. And at some point they stopped it.
It took about an hour in line.
You were an hour in line? Yeah, it was
About
back
an hour.
longer than the ship.
Yeah.
And Betty Ann came on and apologized like 3 times.
Right.
She says, this is not our fault. It's the immigration authorities. We don't really know, but we can't do anything. Just keep waiting.
Right.
And so you guys are gone. We were waiting up at the Lido, the pool area.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy from Canada that we had met. And he comes over and goes, you know what's going on? And I said, wow, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And he says, Israel has been attacked. Get on the internet. And yeah, we arrived at 7 and the missiles had come over about the time we were arriving at 6:30 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I don't know, maybe by 9, we hung around there. And then they finally released our deck. And I walked over to one of the Holland America guys and I go, do you guys know what's going on? I mean, it's a little weird that you're actually letting people off this boat. And he says, oh, Holland is very conservative. If there's any problem, they wouldn't let you off the boat. Right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
It is in southern Israel and you're in northern Israel.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so we got off and then finally the line was going, but it was still backed up.
Yeah.
and they took us through that little green ticket.
Yep.
Right. We got on a bus to go just down to Central Haifa, and
Was it
it just one of the
a cruise
Shuttle
bus?
bus.
Shuttle bus
Cruise bus.
from
Right.
here.
right, and we were waiting like 5 minutes, and a guy came up and said, "Get off the bus. We're not going." And we're like, "You're not kidding." And he goes, "No, this bus is not going anywhere. Go back to the ship."
Right.
So we came back to the ship.
Yeah.
It was interesting though that when we got back up on the ship, because that only took a half hour or 40 minutes. When we got back on the ship, of course, everybody's watching what's going on their phone. And that's when Netanyahu come on and said, "We're at war. I'm calling up the reserves."
Yeah.
That was like 10 o'clock, right?
Well,
And right across from where the ship is parked was the Israeli naval forces.
yeah, there were about 5.
There's 5 cruiser like
Yeah.
ships and a bunch of little patrol boats.
Yeah.
And we watched those guys load on material and men just screaming onto these ships. And they would back out and they would go and they got
They
out of the
didn't need a
harbor.
pilot.
They didn't need a pilot. They got out of the harbor and they were screaming saps.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, oh, this is serious stuff. Anyway,
Yeah.
So you got all the way to
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem, which is a long ways away. I mean,
It was quite a ways away.
an hour and a half ride.
Yeah. Yeah, it was over an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, our guide was pretty good about it, describing everything all the way to Bethlehem.
So up until that point, you hadn't heard anything. You hadn't seen
Heard a
news
thing.
or anything.
I hadn't heard a thing.
Okay.
But our guide, of course, told us to get back on the bus. But she acted as if these things happen. Let's okay. I don't think she quite knew that it was as big as it was.
Right. So I know that Bethlehem is actually in the West Bank. So it's actually controlled by Palestinians. Yeah. So, but you didn't, you hadn't actually made that transition. Usually when you get off the bus,
you have to take a
You have
different
to-
guide. Or
you have to
something.
take a different guide. So you hadn't gotten that far. You were
We
you had
literally
just arrived.
stepped off the bus. We milled around the bus as the last person got off. Phone call.
Got on the bus. Okay.
Yes.
And so then you found out when you got back to the ship, you found
I started searching the internet. And people were searching, and I think we all figured out, all right, something's happened. We didn't realize how big it was, but
Did you guys have any checkpoints or stops on the way back? No.
so
There was some other people that were on private tours. One guy was in Jerusalem, and the driver came over the top of the hill and went and looked down. Said, "What are those fires down there?" And there was like burning tires and stuff. And the driver went a little way down and then went in reverse back over the hill
somebody on the
and
ship.
got out.
This
Yeah, somebody on this ship. He said that there were 4 checkpoints on the way back to the ship that stopped them. One for like a half hour that they couldn't get through.
So I also heard the story that as soon as they could get everybody back on the ship, their goal was to leave.
Right,
But you had difficulty finding the last 2 people.
right.
With 2 problems. One, you had 2 people and a medical emergency.
Correct. Right.
So the 2 people were in a
They were in a
vehicle.
private tour, and we found out later that they tried calling him, but they had their phones on. One of them, one guy, when he got out for a tour, he and looked at his email,
Uh-huh.
and they had sent him an email that said, "Get your buns back to the ship." Right?
yeah,
We're leaving. You later anyway.
yeah.
So then they burned back to the ship. He said the guy that I said he drove down. Turns out when he told him, or he got a call that come back to the ship, right? And the guy was driving like 160 kilometers an hour. He was like flat out burning back to the ship.
yeah.
So
So the guy was scared. The driver was scared at that point.
so you think they delayed it a little bit just to get those?
Oh, they did. They
Yeah.
delay it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right when we were ready to leave, they had that medical emergency.
Yes.
Some person was critically ill and they had to move them off. Right. So that probably took an hour.
Yeah. It was about an hour.
About an hour.
So did you ever get
And
a
then-
pilot boat?
I guess so, because we didn't leave till like 8:35.
Yeah, it was late.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
It was a long time. But I guess he got a pilot. I don't know. He came on and said, "We're ready to leave. We're ready to go," but we don't have a pilot.
Finally.
And then we sit here and sat here, and that was about 5.
5:30.
No,
But it was at least an hour of waiting for the pilot.
yeah. Anyway,
Well, someone told me a story. I don't remember if it was you two guys or someone else, that the ships all have a tracking
oh,
mechanism.
that was me. Yeah. There was somebody on. That was one of the other guys that was normally tracking.
I was sitting with the guy who checked,
and he said the ship disappeared. It's
it,
gone.
it disappeared. They turned it off.
They turned the transponder off.
Right.
So that someone couldn't.
Couldn't for whatever reason. Yeah. I suspect
it's a thing at that point in time.
You know, that transponder signal
But
was
as
a
soon
nice.
as,
Here I am. Here
As soon as we were out a few miles, he
I am.
said,
Back on.
okay, we're back on.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, he went out and went straight away from the shore.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And we didn't know where we were going. It's like, we're just getting out of Dodge.
Yeah.
So in the end, how do you think Holland America did?
Well, I think they were in a tough position at a bunch of different levels because nobody was informed. Even the security personnel down on the dock, they stopped for a while and then they went going again.
Tell me how you think Holland handled the situation, and were you at any point ever feel threatened of the situation?
I didn't. I was concerned, but I personally didn't feel threatened. I was a little worried about some of those people that were off on overnight tours into Jerusalem, where some of them were headed down past the south of Jerusalem there. So I was concerned about some of them, but I didn't personally feel threatened.
So I think we just talked off camera a minute ago about the fact that you were overnight in really
Intending
so
to be
some of
overnight,
these people were not intending to be back with the ship that
That's
night.
correct. They were going to meet us back in Ashdod Harbor near Tel Aviv, 2 days hence.
Yeah.
So, they were off doing their thing. One was going to stay overnight with a friend in Jerusalem. So, these were the ones that
So
needed
Holland had to contact
every human.
first.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and you said they reached one of them by email.
By email. The guy happened to look at his email. Because he had his phone off, but he happened to look at an email, and the email was like, "Get your buns back to the ship. We're leaving."
So you wound up leaving nobody behind.
Nobody behind. Nobody. Well, except the one person that was very ill that they took off the ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Who-
But I really thought Holland did the best they could under the circumstances.
Yeah, it was a tough call. Like I said, they might have delayed people leaving the ship just under the circumstances, but it's a tough call. It's a really tough call because they're trying to keep their business going and everything. And then the other tough call that the captain had to make was, do I wait for the pilot or don't I wait for the pilot to leave the harbor when he had everybody on board? He was ready to go. He came on and said, "We're ready to go. I'm ready to cast off, but I don't have a pilot." So he elected to wait for a pilot, I guess. I really don't know whether he ever got a pilot or not, but we left at 8:30. So,
Yeah. So, and then you changed your itinerary. You wound up going to someplace in Turkey.
Alanya, Turkey.
Alanya, Turkey.
Which I thought was a wonderful stop.
Yeah, we went out and there was like a sea day, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we went to Alanya, Turkey we were in Alanya the next day. And that was a wonderful little port.
Yeah.
It was a great port.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm glad we stopped there.
Party Central. Yeah, I mean, it's where all the Turkish people come for their holidays on the beach down there because the water was wonderful and they have all these like pirate ships. You should check out Alanya someday. They have all these pirate ships
Lined up.
crazy, lined up with these crazy graphic structures on the back,
Right.
and they take you out and they're playing loud music. It's like a rage party or something, but on a ship.
Right.
They take you out.
Yeah, it's a party.
Around.
Yeah.
It's a party though.
Yeah.
And they have foam generators, and all the young people are
But
dancing around in the
town
foam.
itself was interesting.
It was an interesting little town. It was wonderful. Great.
Lots of shops and
Yeah.
we had
Typical
lunch
Turkey.
there. It was fabulous. Fabulous.
Like a lot. Much more friendly than Haifa. Seriously, I mean, you can walk off the boat and do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great.
Anyway, we liked it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
If you find this sort of content interesting, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. Doesn't cost anything, it helps us out a lot. Over the next few weeks, I'll be releasing several more videos of our experience on the new Staten Dam, which was certainly not as nerve-wracking, but still deeply intriguing. Until then, safe travels.